video cassette and select DVD. They'll leave you screaming for more.
Hey, ghoul friends. My voice is gone. I was at Carly Rae Jepsen, so my voice is not here. It's not here.
I was not, because I have good taste in music. I'm totally kidding.
I hope you are. You're about to get some emails. Some very specific emails. But you know what? You're not the first gay that has come out as not liking Carly Rae Jepsen this week.
Her. No, I love her. I don't love her new dedication was like, I don't know.
It was mid for you at best.
Yeah, but I also did organize an entire poetry reading around it. So I still did obviously love it.
And it was great, by the way.
Yeah, but emotion will never be topped.
Yeah, because it's a bottom.
But I will. Yeah.
Okay.
Two gay jokes at once.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Fear Queers, which is not a Carly Rae Jepsen podcast. My name is Chase, and
I'm Beyza.
And we're here to talk about, this is one of our Mini Fright episodes, so a bit shorter in length, and we're tackling Queer for Fear.
Fear Queers is tackling Queer for Fear.
Fear Queer, Queer for Fear.
Not confusing at all.
No, not at all. But yeah, this is a Shudder original. I'm sure you have a blip about it, or no? So Shudder original docuseries, 4 episodes, each episode an hour each. And it kind of well, let's let Beyza explain it.
Yeah, Queer for Fear. Oh no, it went away. Okay, Queer for Fear explores the topic from its literary origins with queer authors Mary Shelley, Bram Stoker. We'll get into that. A lot of good stuff, good gay stuff, from the Lavender Scare alien invasion films of the mid 20th century to the unabating, dangerous queer women inspired by Sheridan Le Fanu's Carmilla, my favorite. I don't think I stopped talking about.
That was a great episode.
Yeah, I don't think I stopped talking about Carmilla. Queer for Fear re-examines genre stories through a queer lens, seeing them not as violent, murderous narratives, but as tales of survival that resonate thematically with queer audiences everywhere.
Period.
That's it. That's all we got.
So this is it's going to be fun. I'm very excited to talk about it. It took me a little bit longer to get to it, but I feel like we learned.
Fell.
What was that?
My comics fell.
Your comics.
My comics.
So where do we want to? Oh, this is going to be spoiler filled, by the way. So, but like, you know, a lot of what we talk about isn't necessarily like it's spoilers in like a narrative way. It's just sort of like things that we learned during the show and things that we liked about it, things that we might not have liked about it. So watch it, come to your own conclusions, enjoy it. Also watch it because it supports important stuff. You know what I mean? It's a queer made, queer ran, queer written, like everything's good. Which is
becoming more and more prevalent, but I think with that a bit more demonized in media, maybe. Especially in the horror genre, where there are lots of different people with lots of different viewpoints, some very bad. Yeah. And homophobic.
Some bad takes out there.
Lots of bad takes, surprisingly.
Okay, so overall, what did we think?
Overall, I cried a lot. And I told you that already. Especially the first episode. I think I was just kind of overwhelmed with I was overwhelmed with the fact that it existed at all. Yeah. And I think that was, I don't know, it was just very like, I felt many things. Yeah. What did you think about everything at first?
I get what you're saying in terms of like how, I don't know, I think one of the main things that it did for me that I love, and this is how I feel about any piece of like queer docu-media, where it's like, it reminds me that gay people existed before 2006. Do you know what I mean? Like it does this wonderful thing
like
where
the year
I'm like,
it came out.
Yeah, that's what I mean. It's like it does that. The show does such a good job of like being like, wow, queer people were not only like making, you know, horror films and like, and, you know, kind of claiming a space in horror as a genre and inventing the genre. Yeah. But on top of
literally inventing it.
Yeah. But on top of that, like they were making movies and they were artists and they found ways to still hit mainstream in the way that like some of like Universal's most successful movies or people's favorite characters today come from a queer place. And so that just like is so validating, especially as a creative person who's queer.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. I feel the same way. I think that's the biggest impact it made on me, but you said it. I couldn't say it the way that you said it. I think I was just like, it's because I just grew up not thinking people like me like were in history.
Yes, exactly.
Like you're ingrained to think that you like just kind of popped out of nowhere, especially like queer trans people is like, you know, this new non-binary thing that I've been identifying as for 10 fucking years, but it's like, you know, new to so many people, so it's new to the world for some fucking reason. But it was really validating to see like queer cinema also just be history. Like it's not even just like queer history, it's fully just history of an entire fucking genre, which is very I don't know, just no one talks about that.
You know, and like a whole medium too. It's just like the art of filmmaking. It's just movie history and cinema history. And I agree. I like that you brought up the history element to it too, because I feel like, you know, growing up, I never had role models in historical figures.
No.
You just never could relate to them. The stories were cool, but they weren't ever that cool. I mean, obviously that is the blankiest of blanket statements. Yeah. But I mean that if as like a young queer person, if I had more, like I found new role models through this, watching this, you know, people where I'm like, oh, like either people who I was like, oh, I knew I always liked them. Yeah. And I couldn't understand why I implicitly understood them, but I found out through the show that they were queer, and we'll get into that. But on top of that, it's like, oh, like what's his butt? James Whale, girl. Yeah. My new hero. Yeah. Like, hero. And it's just
you're like gonna cosplay as James Whale.
Literally, like, there's just all these gay people hanging out making art together, like making these movies together and finding ways to, like, express queerness through such a homophobic world. So, so I don't know. I just loved that element of the historical element that you mentioned.
Yeah. And I think also I love seeing it in the form of a documentary, because documentaries, I'm like starting to enjoy more and more, because I cannot imagine making a documentary to like not have any like to not have any. I mean, you have like a outline. I'm sure I've never fucking made one, but you know, I'm assuming you have like an outline and like questions you want to ask people, but like you never know where that's going to go. Yeah. So it's really,
or how it's all going to come together.
Yeah, exactly. And you don't know what kind of picture it's actually going to make. So it's really like, I don't know. I'm just like, how did they do that? Yeah. It's really, I don't know, it's really inspiring. It's really, it's all of those adjectives that, you know, we've been saying for the last 5 minutes. But yeah, so many, it reminded me a lot of how I felt. It's not a documentary, but the show Dickinson, about Emily Dickinson, really kind of gave me a similar feeling of like queer validation, historical fiction type vibe. And like, I mean, she's a pretty dark writer. Yeah. I mean, one of the darkest poets who has ever lived. And I think it just kind of reinforces that idea of like darkness and queerness and like gothic romance and all that. You know, it's very like, I don't know. It made me feel how I felt when I watched that show, which I loved. I loved that show. And my queen, Haley Steinfeld, love of my life, was playing Emily Dickinson.
Yes. No, she's so good at playing queer. I don't know how she does it. She must be kind of queer. But we don't know. So I will say, okay, so these things that didn't work for me, I don't know if there's anything for you. It was a little long. Like, the episodes were a little bit long in terms of, like, there were moments that really hit really hard. They slapped so hard. They were so good. Yeah. But like, I would leave each episode with like 2 or 3 things that really hit really hard, but the rest of it like didn't really hit as hard. So I'm like, did it have to be full hour episodes? I don't know. You know what I mean? For me, there was just a couple moments where it just kind of was like, okay, I feel like we could have trimmed it up a little bit. Like, I love Alaska. Not the state. I love Alaska Thunderfuck, but like, I don't need to spend like a minute of screen time, which is a long time, of Alaska being like, Frankenstein's brow, like, so iconic.
I completely disagree with you.
Oh my God.
That was one of my favorite parts.
No way.
Yeah,
I literally sent a video of it to Blake, and I was like laughing because I was like, what the fuck is she saying? She's not saying anything.
But that's what I love.
That's the camp, and that's the fun, that's the gay.
Yeah, that's what I love about it, is just like, it was heavy historical, and then it could like just out of nowhere just be
Just
like
have her
Alaska Thunderfuck
with
saying
zero
nonsense.
media literacy, just talking,
totally.
like,
But
just-
that's I love the range of like
Yes.
creative expression
That's a
in
good
that,
point.
and like the just like so many different perspectives of like
Yeah.
different artists, you know, filmmakers, writers, whoever.
Podcasters, a lot of podcasters.
Yeah, a lot of podcasters, which is really cool.
So we'll be there for season 2.
Yeah. Totally. Well, after you just fucking shat on it, probably.
No, I shat on Alaska, so Alaska can come for me.
She will.
I'll take her.
In your
I
nightmares.
would pay her to punch me in the face.
Me too.
I'd
tip
love
her a 20.
And she looked fucking good.
Yes.
So good, just dripping in the red drools.
Yes.
Jewels. I was drooling.
Drools. You're drooling. Yeah, I don't know. I loved the diversity of people who were just like, it wasn't just filmmakers.
Right,
You know what I
right.
mean? Which is so my favorite
And different
author.
ages, like
Lots
all
of
over
different
the
ages.
place. Yeah.
My favorite author, Carmen Maria Machado, was I love her so much.
She was great in this too.
Yeah, and she's just so I don't know, she's just so inspiring to me, like as a writer, and to hear her talk about, I could listen to her talk about movies all day.
100%.
Yeah.
And I also Justin Simeon,
Iconic.
so iconic, and Leslie Headland.
Yes.
So like
Yeah.
like those two were some of my favorites too to have on that show. Is just like
Yeah.
I could listen to Leslie talk forever and a day.
But not Alaska.
No, respectfully, no.
I'm just
I liked
fucking-
it when Alaska read like Mary Shelley's journal entries though. That was great. That was
Okay,
really great, and
so-
that was fun.
Yeah, episode 1 was like Mary Shelley, Frankenstein, Bram Stoker, like very gothic media. How did you what was your favorite episode, 1 through 4?
Okay, I do have my favorite episode. What was your favorite episode? As I pull this up. No, do you want me to go?
Yeah, you go.
I think, well, first and foremost, I think these episodes only get better.
I agree.
For me, each episode gets better and better and better. But when it comes to like my personal stuff, I really loved episode 2 and all the time they spent with Psycho and Hitchcock.
Yeah.
And Anthony Perkins, because like though that is like where I come from in terms of like gateway horror. I've read Psycho the book. I've spent a lot of time with Anthony Perkins just in terms of like, I mean, I go through phases in my life where I
sure
just
you
save
have.
dozens of photos of him because I think he's yeah, but also because he's so good at acting, and he was such an underrated actor. And I mean, I don't know how specific we want to get right now, but there were just like certain things that they highlighted that were like,
No, get into it.
okay, girl, we were hanging out with Rebecca this weekend. Shout out Rebecca. And first of all, Rebecca in the movie. Okay, that was also the show. Anyway, basically, I was going off. This poor person, our poor friend, had to like listen to me rant about this. But basically, I found it so fascinating because Anthony Perkins for me has always been an actor where I'm like, I don't get it. Is he gay or is he like not gay? Like he always felt
Interesting.
very gay to me.
Yeah.
I was always like, and that's why I loved him so much, and that's why he was like such a role model for me, especially as like a younger actor, is what I wanted to do. So
Yeah.
it was to learn about his actual queerness and have his son talk about his actual queerness, and then have a conversation about Alfred Hitchcock and his, you know, either like hatred of queerness or identification with queerness.
Yeah.
And like the way that they highlighted the part in Psycho where like the cop or like someone comes over to the motel to talk to Norman, and they're talking over the bar in the office, and they're interrogating Norman, and it's like they look exactly the same.
Yeah.
But the guy interrogating Norman, who's heavily coded as queer, is basically Anthony Perkins when he was playing romantic leads and like heartthrobs earlier in his career. So it's like a straight version of Anthony Perkins talking to like a very queer Anthony Perkins, and it's like they're fighting, and it's like Alfred Hitchcock did that so intentionally. Do you know what I mean? I also like Rope has always been one of my favorite movies. The
really
Birds,
good one.
obviously, and also the queerness with the birds and that woman in it. Her name is it's leaving me.
I can't.
I just had it, but anyways, like
and
that.
Rope with the two. I forget their names too, but yeah.
And Rope for me is like, obviously it's like such an important part of like queer cinema history for me. Like that's how I've always like learned about it in school.
Yeah.
And the fact, but what I learned from the show is like the really hot one, the submissive one who's very pretty was dating the screenwriter of the movie.
Right.
So like, it's just again, like this like queerness that just has existed
Yeah.
in media for so long and has gotten away with it. Do you know what I mean? I don't know, because it's like I feel like it's like now it's like hard. It's either really hard and impossible for queerness to exist, very, like, you know, implicitly behind like, you know, the gatekeepiness of like in any industry, but it's either hard to get in and have queerness exist, or it's like celebrated as like the biggest deal in the world. And it's like,
and overly commodified. Yeah.
But what's so cool about it back then is that it just like, it was like, there was nothing anyone could do about it. It just was.
It's weird because it's almost like, which this sounds kind of horrible to say, but like when you don't talk about it, it's more freeing in a weird way.
Yes, I agree.
Like when it's not overly not that I don't think it's overly represented right now, but like when as it is at this level, it is very like, I don't know, is there more of a pressure to be like more hush about certain things? I don't know what it is.
It's like more scrutinized, it's more commodified. It's just there's just so much more of a magnifying glass on it.
And I think it's like the internet. I mean, that's the issue. Everything's issue is like everyone thinks that they can just say whatever, which I guess they can, but like don't
go off. I mean,
don't.
Yeah.
For the love of God. Yeah. But it is it is very, I don't know, it's so weird because I felt the same thing.
Yeah.
In the first few 2-3 episodes. I mean, even the 4th episode, which was my favorite,
so
obviously.
Good. And like that was my second favorite because it was just I think it's the best episode.
Yeah.
It was my favorite,
so
but it's the best one. That 4th one is good.
And like lesbian vampire. More could I ask for? Like that's
literally
all,
nothing. Yeah.
I do have one issue, but I'll get to it later. It's not a big thing. But I don't know. That's what I thought about, what I was thinking about during the entire process of watching every episode was like, it's so weird how even in like the aughts when we were growing up, I was like obviously like I was out, but I wasn't comfortable with it. But it seems like people in the like 20s, 30s, 40s, even, I mean, not the 50s, I don't think. The 50s were a little nuclear family time, as they talked about in the documentary. But those decades, I feel like, I don't know, there was just some kind of freeness that we don't have anymore.
There was
more anonymity, maybe. I don't know.
Or like maybe like because, and this isn't a good thing or a bad thing, but I think there was, I assume there was a little bit more of like liberation in how not talked about everything was. Yeah,
that's,
Do you know what I mean? Where like it just like, so like if you weren't talking about it, then it just was allowed to exist however secretly it was existing pretty freely, even if it wasn't secret.
That's how I just finished the Interview with the Vampire show. We were talking about it yesterday.
I'm starting very soon.
But that is exactly what I love about it.
Good.
It's like through the decades of like the 1910s to like the 30s, 40s. I
literally love that. Love it.
Like how fucking queer they were.
Yeah.
And how there was obviously like, it wasn't acceptable. It wasn't like, you know, not that it 100% is right now, but there was so much like freeness and so much exploration that was happening that I don't know. That really reminded me of how I felt when I was watching the documentary too, when I finished that, because those last 2 episodes were gay as fuck.
So gay. Yeah. And the 3rd one was amazing. Everything with the body snatchers was so fun to talk about because they covered like every side to it. What were you gonna say?
No, I was gonna say that one, the like, I don't know, maybe it was I was just having a bad day, but the 3rd episode didn't hit the hardest for me. Which was the like cat people, body snatchers. I think I don't really resonate too much with that in horror generally, which is why I wasn't as interested, but I learned a lot through those just because those aren't the type of movies that I'm necessarily gravitating towards. I'm like very much Frankenstein, lesbian vampire, that kind of stuff. Universal monsters.
What I liked about the body snatcher stuff was they talk a lot about like the safety of conforming, but also like the horrifying reality that if you do conform, like you lose all of yourself, and like straight culture or like the body, like the alien can take over you, and like you lose your individuality, you lose your queerness, but also like there is like a certain like safety in being able to pass, like in passing, like that was all so interesting because they literally try to pass as other body snatchers. Like that was really interesting. I think
that is why I felt very uncomfortable by it. Like and it was like kind of going towards that 50s, 60s era where I don't know, I get very uncomfortable thinking about that time in American history. It's just very like, I don't know. It feels very, like you said, just conforming and very like dangerous to be a queer person. And I think that's why I was uncomfortable watching that episode.
Yeah. And I agree. And I think what it did for me in terms of uncomfortableness too, is it's like, it talks a lot about like transformation and like werewolf stuff where it's like this fear of like, oh, if I like that's going to come out at some point, right? Like the transformation is going to happen. Like your queerness is going to be expressed in certain ways, whether you like it or not. It's a big reason why I didn't drink in high school. I was horrified that if I got drunk in high school, I would be gay, like gayness would come out of me. And so that was like very uncomfortable to watch. And they talked about that, which I thought was really interesting. And also sort of like the shame that like people who like were werewolves in these movies that they were talking about or whatever, like, or the cat people, like, the shame of like after the transformation, like after that is expressed, after you let that out, like the shame you feel afterwards. And like that shit is a little too real.
Crazy how everything is gay.
100%.
Isn't we're talking about this?
100%. 100%.
It's crazy. Okay. Even like, do you have more things to say about the monsters?
No, honestly, I mean, I'm ready to keep talking, but those are like all of my, honestly, all my notes.
Yeah. I just think I want to talk about episode 4 a little bit because the way that they portrayed lesbian sapphic romance was like, it was great.
Yeah.
I loved every single, I don't think I've watched, I think I have to watch Rebecca. I've never seen Rebecca.
Oh yeah.
I have to watch it.
Yeah.
I'm already obsessed and I haven't even seen it.
Yeah.
But I'm like so fascinated by those portrayals of like queer women in a time where it was like, if you didn't have a husband, you were fucked.
Yeah.
Like you were, you had no money, you were no money, no family, 16 mil in Miami. Like you were not going to be a like functioning human in society. And I think the idea of like saying fuck it and just like being who you were because like you didn't really have an option is like very much how I felt when I was younger. And obviously in different ways, but I don't know. I think like people are so scared of women's sexuality even now. Yeah. And it's such a relevant thing.
It's
like
so relevant.
I mean, I know that's like a common thing is like lots has changed, but not much has changed. Right. It's very much that idea of like people are still scared of like women's sexuality and defying the roles of women in like heterosexual relationships. It's so, I don't know. I think that episode was just it felt just relatable to current day, which is sad. But
it is, yeah, true. No, sad, and it really is crazy. They were really able to communicate a lot about that in really powerful ways. And then also that idea, you kind of mentioned this earlier of like the lesbian ghost, where it's like this, I don't know, it was so good. And it kind of did such a good job of like talking about all the compromises women have to make in life. Mm-hmm. And it compromises in terms of like their little body, so they're a ghost, or if they are in their full power, then they die. Like it's like, oh my God, that episode hit so freaking hard.
It really hit hard, and I will never stop talking about it. And there are just so many powerful depictions of queer women, good or evil. Like it's very evil, you know. I think. And it's, you know, telling, I think when they, like, we're starting to go into the 90s a little bit more about even when it was less of, like, fear of women's sexuality and more like a fetishization of sexuality. It was like, bitch can't catch a break.
I know.
It's really I don't know. It's a very special episode. It is. And I think they did save the best for last, like you said.
They did.
They really went out on a bang, which is so like, I feel like documentaries can go, especially docuseries, like not a full length movie or anything like that, can really go downhill or like lose steam. But I think they really they really hit it. I do have one thing that I was upset about.
What was it?
Karan Kusama.
Yes.
Jennifer's Body. Director.
JB. They didn't talk about Jennifer's Body. Is that what you're going to say? No, it was such a hole in it. It was such a hole in it. No, I was waiting for them to bring it up.
I was shocked.
I was shocked too, especially because like Karen Kusama was out there talking about sort of like this unapologetic like power that women have, and like how like, and like just sort of like going from like a place of like being so like power, like for women in stories to be go from a place of so powerless to the opposite of that, which is literally Jennifer's body, and it was so crazy to me that they didn't even talk about it. It was like, I mean, maybe it's because they're going to make another season and they're going to go further up, but how do you not talk about Jennifer's body in that episode?
Yeah,
I agree.
That was the most disappointing. That was like one of the only things I was disappointed by.
Yeah.
The only thing, because I don't know, I felt very like confused.
Yeah.
I just, maybe it was a bit too, well, because they talked about like Ginger Snaps was from the 2000s. So
yeah, that's what I didn't
feel
get
like,
either. I was like, oh, we're definitely going to talk about JB then.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe it is more of a it's more contemporary, but I just feel like it's so relevant in conversations in queer horror nowadays that it's like it's Renaissance or whatever people are calling it. It's just very and to have the director.
That's what I don't get. And like, again, if you're talking about Ginger Snaps,
a clip.
Yeah, literally like
There
not
wasn't
like,
a clip. I looked again. There was not a clip.
I agree. And they literally showed a clip from Trick or Treat for the werewolf episode where all the women are like werewolves in the woods. So it's like, but they didn't talk about Trick or Treat, but they had a clip from that movie. So I was like, so you guys aren't even going to have a clip from Jennifer's body?
I know. I wonder, there must be a reason.
Like either like maybe they're saving it all for like a full documentary that Karen will get with Jennifer's body on Shudder. Because I don't know, but it was so glaring. It was so glaring. The second the episode started, I was like, oh hell yeah, we're gonna get into JB at the end. I thought they're gonna end on Jennifer's body. Yeah, I wonder if she was asked about it.
I wonder if she was. Maybe she wasn't. Maybe because it was also such a glaring spot on her resume for such a long time. Obviously now it's not anymore, but it was detrimental to her, to like, Diablo Cody, to Megan Fox, like all these women.
But is that a conversation that would be great to have?
It'd be so good. But I think you're right. I think it should be its own documentary.
Yeah, maybe.
Shudder.
Maybe. Shudder. I shudder to think what the world would be like without it.
Yeah, that was literally the only thing I didn't like.
I agree.
And probably there is a good reason.
I hope there's a good reason. If there's not a good reason, then I'll fight.
What? You'll pull it out of your brain?
Yeah.
Don't do that because there's so much good stuff in it.
Oh.
Anything else?
No.
I could talk longer, but we can't. So.
But we can't. But if you guys have seen it, please let us know. What
was your favorite episode?
Yeah, tell us. Yeah, let us know your favorite ep. What you liked about it, what you didn't like about it. If you haven't seen it, go watch it.
And what did you learn? Because I
learned a lot.
That we can't even cover in this. But I'm excited. It'll be an October rewatch for me.
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
At least a couple, like maybe not the full thing, but for sure, at least that last episode is so fucking good.
Yeah, it really is good. It was good. Amazing.
Love you so much.
Love you. Thank you for watching. So give us a review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify if you have the time. If you're on YouTube, which we're recording on right now, like the video, leave a comment. Let us know in the comment section.
Have a little subby.
And
yeah. Until
next time.
Gay Frights. What did you think I was gonna do?
Nothing.
Be afraid. Be very afraid. Now available on video cassette and select DVD. They'll leave you screaming for more.